Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today I am going to be putting Sabina in the hot seat and asking her some questions that if you're moving to the area, you should 100% ask these questions about, living here and what house you're choosing and just a bunch of really good information about specifically living in 38 Destin.
Hey, that's not fair. You can't just not tell me what the questions are.
All right, well, if you don't know who we are, this is Sabina and I'm Christina, and we are a mother-daughter real estate team here in the Panhandle of Florida.
All right, Christina, break it.
All right. Okay,
just be fair.
Just be fair. Your first question is, what is a COPRA zone and why should buyers care?
Well, there are some areas in Destin and a few in Santa Rosa Beach that are in a COPRA zone, and that was established many years ago to slow down construction. And what that means is they took away any government funding. Like if you are applying for a VA or an FHA loan, or more importantly for a FEMA-funded flood insurance, you have to go to private, and it will make your homeowner insurance and flood insurance more expensive, and also it limits what lending loans you can use.
So anyone coming to the area, I would say it's very important for them to know if they're looking to buy a property, is this property in a COPRA zone or not?
Yeah, but there are very few areas, more in Destin than in Walton County, so it's, it really comes down to the neighborhoods. There are specific neighborhoods that are in it, like Cali Plantation, Regatta Bay, Emerald Bay. There's a couple of small communities south of 98, and then even there's a couple here in Santa Rosa Beach on the west end of Walton County.
Awesome. And
oh, look at that helicopter.
We had a helicopter fly by. All right, so my next question is, how often do we get hurricanes here, and how should buyers prepare?
Well, that's a good question, right? We have lived here now 13 years. We have evacuated twice, but that's truly, hurricanes come every year, and there are hurricanes that do affect the area. And I always say, the good news with hurricanes is you have ample of warning, and just make sure you are safe. Your safety is always first, and evacuate, and have a plan in hand for that situation.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that was great. And then as far as, looking for a home, looking to live here, moving from somewhere else that maybe doesn't have hurricanes, do you have any advice for someone looking for a home, maybe a home that's more elevated or one that has hurricane windows? Can you talk a little bit more about properties that would help protect you?
Sure. So, a few years ago, Walton County building plans, upped their restriction on building codes. So newer homes that were built after that change are having hurricane impact glass, especially the ones that are south of 98, closer to the beach. So older homes, you have to really be careful and understand the cost of insurance, how it affects you. And so elevation is another component, how high is the house elevated, flood zone. There are a lot of factors that consider your risk factors, but truly, if you get a hurricane and you are in the direct path, it does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but there are some things you can do to make sure you pick a home that reduces your risk factors.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes complete sense. I think that's a great explanation with that. And another question we get from a lot of people looking to move here in general is short-term rentals, how that works. Are there neighborhoods where there are no short-term rentals? Are there neighborhoods where it's only short-term rentals? And how do you kind of navigate that as a buyer looking to maybe move here as a second home, primary, full-time? How do you make that choice, and what options are there for buyers?
Well, I think that's a really good question. But I think ultimately it comes down to what are the buyers' ultimately goal, identifying. Is this truly a second home and you don't want to be surrounded by any short-term rentals? Or are you looking for an investment property where you can live here certain months of the year and then rent it out? Mm-hmm. Or is it truly an investment? So you got to identify it. And, living in a short-term rental communities can have some cons, because if you are here full-time and you have your next door neighbor comes every week, and they're partying at the pool and hanging towels over their railings, you may not want that. So it really truly depends on your goal, what you're looking for. But we have it all. We have communities that are gated, do not allow short-term rentals, and we have communities that allow both. Communities that are kind of a balance, 50-50, and then you truly have the short-term rental communities where you have really no residents living there full-time.
Yeah, can you give me an example of one or two communities that are completely taken over by short-term rentals?
Well, if you go a little bit further, east toward the 38 East End, you do have several communities there, that are definitely all
like watercolor
short-term rental. Well, watercolor actually has now the fifth faith that is geared for people that live here full-time.
Oh.
Yeah. And all the other ones, I would say watercolor is kind of mixed. You have people who truly use it as a second home, and then you have people who use it as an investment property as well.
That's really awesome information. And then, another question.
Hold on.
And I'm gonna wait for the helicopter to go by.
This is what I love about living here. You got all these planes and you got all these helicopters flying by.
So another question that, I feel like buyers are asking all the time is the elevation zones in Walton County. And how can you figure that out if you're looking at a property? If you're on a lot and you're looking, how can you figure out where the flood zones are, what elevation you're at, and how do you navigate that as a buyer?
Typically speaking, an elevation certificate is necessary when you're buying in an AE flat zone. There are different flat zones. Flat zone X is the one where the lender doesn't require flood insurance. But if you go into a flat zone A or AE, or maybe even an AE that has a number behind it, like an AE7, that means you have to build your house 7 feet above the elevation. So Walton County has amazing links available for you to see if your property is in wetlands, in a flat zone. And the elevation certificate sometimes needs to be done by a surveyor. And if it's not available, or you are trying to build on a piece of property, you may need to have that request when you do your survey.
Awesome. That's a great answer to that question. I think that all buyers should be looking at that, whether it's in flood zone X or not. Just check the map and see where you're at, so you have a better idea of all of it when you're buying property.
So do you know where the highest elevation here is on 30A?
It is in Blue Mountain Beach, right?
Good job, Christina. That's so true.
All right. My next question for you is just to touch a little bit on the private beaches here. I know that there's been stuff going on in the news about the government overpassing some of the private beach stuff and not. So what is your overall thoughts on that?
Well, the customary use definitely has caused a lot of news for this area. And it definitely is an issue when you come in June, July, and August. Because what happened is there's about 72 homes that have their beaches up front are private, meaning you can't put your chairs on there like we did today.
Yeah.
We can do this. But you can always put your chair in the high water line, and you can always walk on these beaches. Look at this, we're here this morning. What time is it?
It is, I think it's 7:30.
7:30, we are in June, and look at this. I mean,
pretty empty.
Pretty empty, and we love our beaches early in the morning, going for walks late in the evenings, and obviously there are some hidden treasure spots there you can go. You see, that's what happens. We are doing here a video recording, and I'm negotiating a contract, and the buyer is asking, have they signed the counteroffer? And I know they're anxious because we have a very tight 21 financing contingency, so timing is always of the essence in real estate. So pardon me. There we go, phone back again.
Okay, so I have one more question for you, and I know a couple of years ago the Miami condo fell down, and ever since then there's been a lot of different rules and regulations around condos here in Florida, and you're having to get things like the milestone report and all of these things to make sure that the condo is in good standing, and that has caused a little bit of a shift in condos. So what is it like buying here a condo versus a house? I know that there is quite a few differences. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so back in January they came out with a new condo rider. And on this condo rider, the seller has to do some homework and based on did they have a milestone inspection report, And there are certain criteria now that are challenging. The reason being is, number one, the cost of insurance has gone up for condos, causing special assessment. And then the milestone and also the structural integrity report, which is another one that has to be done every 10 years, milestone every 30 years, causes, once they do the report, the condo association has to repair these items addressed, causing special assessments. So when you're buying a condo, it is truly important, the age of the condo, and to find out if these reports have been done and current, are there any special assessments coming, and also check the insurance. When was it last updated? And so it has slowed down the purposes, people buying condos, and condos tend to stay on the market longer because that's something you really have to truly take into consideration.
100%. Well, I think that those were all amazing answers, and we thank you guys for continuously supporting our channel and watching all of our videos. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We post all kinds of videos in the 30A, Destin, Emerald Coast area. And if you have any questions, drop them below. We're happy to do a video or answer you in the comments. This is Sabina. I'm Christina. We are a mother-daughter team here in the Emerald Coast, and we will see you in the next video.
Until the next time, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss und goodbye.